pardon me. I was just taking a glance at the eggs I picked up this morning. Would you take a look at them? They are simply handsome. But I doubt you came to talk about my eggs. Or at least these ones. So, what brings you here? You want me to give you advice on marriage? I would be the last person to ask. Well, you might not be aware of it, but I have quite the reputation in the county. In truth, I am quite good when it comes to rejecting unwanted suitors rather than at marrying them. Oh well, yes, today I am married. That is in fact correct. But in the older days I did my share of rejections, if you know what I mean. Oh, you want to reject someone as well? You do. How exciting, how exciting. Well, I can certainly help you with that. You see, I wasn't always Mrs. Oak. Once upon a time, I was Miss Everdeen. That's right. And believe it or not, Mr. Oak, Gabriel, was actually my sweetheart, my first sweetheart. Excuse the flies, we are in a farm after all. When Mr. Oak first proposed, we were so young then. I could not say yes. Well, see, it is not that I did not like him. I did like him, but simply not enough to consider marrying him. I was such an independent girl, like you surely are yourself. But before getting into the interesting stuff, how about a hot cup of tea? I made it quite a while ago, so it's not too hot anymore actually. It's just right. So, would you like one? Very well, let me just put it right here for you. And I have my own. I adore these cups. Aren't they lovely? They're just charming. But let us get back to how I rejected my husband to be. Do you know how I rejected him? I used the financial card. The money excuse, to be precise. Oh yes. It is rather easy to employ. All you need to do is to pretend as though what keeps you from accepting the proposal is money. So, when Gabriel proposed to me, I said, Mr. Oak, I have hardly a penny in the world. I'm staying with my aunt for my bare sustenance. I am better educated than you, and I don't love you a bit. you are a farmer just beginning. At the time, he had this little cottage, quite cute, with a small flock of sheep. Tragic story, actually. He actually never recovered from that loss. See, the sheep ran away. Oh yes, they did. They ran away in the middle of the night and they jumped off a cliff. They all died, of course. Tragic story. But it did work out for the best because, he had to sell his farm and then he ended up working for my farm. So, it turned out for the best. But just don't mention that to him because he is quite sore when it comes to that matter. But where was I? Right. I told him, Mr. Oak, you ought, in prudence, if you are to marry at all, which you should certainly not think of doing at present, to marry a woman with money who should stock a larger fund that you have now. So this was my excuse to not marry him. Now, the money excuse only works if your unwanted suitor is either much wealthier than you are or much poorer. Is that your case? Oh, yes, well, that is tragic for you. Now, lucky for you, I had another suitor, Mr. Baldwood. He is actually currently in jail, for he had gone mad. Not my fault at all. It all started because I sent him a Valentine as a joke, if you prefer. I was just amusing myself with Liddy. Liddy, her idea, no doubt. No matter. All in all, I sent a harmless Valentine to Baldwood that said, "Marry me." But I was obviously joking. I was playing him. It was innocent. Alas, upon reading my Valentine, Mr. Baldwood discovered himself some feelings for my person. He became quite taken with the idea of making me his wife. Tragic. So he got it in his head that he had to propose to me, which he did in front of all of our friends, which was frankly quite embarrassing. I could not use the money excuse like I did with Mr. Oak because by then I was quite wealthy myself. He was quite wealthy. Technically nothing should have opposed to our union. Two rich farmers marrying each other, it was the most logical thing in the world. But let me put that there. I first fainted. I needed a few moments. I was too surprised to answer right away, so this gave me a bit of time to think of the perfect technique to reject him. When I was finally ready, I said, "Mr. Baldwood, it is painful to have to say I am surprised, so I don't know how to answer you with propriety and respect. But I am only just able to speak out my meaning. Now, I am afraid I can't marry you. No, I can't. Much as I respect you, you are too dignified for me to suit you." I call this excuse the "you're too good for me" card. Very useful in the event that your suitor appears to be perfect in all aspects. He's good on paper, if you know what I mean, but you can't stand him for the love of God. So, you keep using the word respect, and you basically tell him that he is too dignified for you to suit him, and that should do the trick. See, you can say something along those lines. I feel that, though I respect you much, I do not feel what would justify me in accepting your offer. It's kind of an overly complicated way of saying that you don't wanna. Now, not being the least in love with him, I was able to calmly take a look at his offer. Mr. Baldwood was quite wealthy. He was one of which many women of my own station, and not a few of high rank, would have been wise to accept in every point of view, from political to passionate. It was desirable that I, a lonely girl, should marry. And marry, well, this earnest, well-to-do, well-respected man. He was close to my doors. He was my neighbour, have I mentioned that? His standing was sufficient. His qualities were even supererogatory. Had I felt, which I did not, any wish for the married state in the abstract, I could not reasonably have rejected him for my whims. I esteemed and I liked him. He was my friend. Yet I did not want him, if that makes any sense. I did not want to use him for my own means. You know, it appears that ordinary men take wives because possession is not possible without marriage, and that ordinary women take or accept husbands because marriage is not possible without possession. You know, with totally different aims. The method is the same on both sides. You understand, I had just gotten the farm at the time. The novelty hadn't started to wear off, if that makes sense. I was still quite excited. I was this entrepreneur, business woman. I did not want to marry so early. I did not need to marry. So my second piece of advice is, well, do not be afraid to friend zone your unwanted suitors. You know, if you don't want them, just don't have them. That's as simple as that. Oh well, if you must know, there was another suitor, another man in my life. I used to be married to him actually. Surgeon Troy, or was it a surgeon? I'm not sure. Was it a surgeon? Yes, I think it was. So my third piece of advice would be to not marry too hastily. See, I married Troy because why did I marry that man? Well, he sort of just showed off his biceps to me, and I became quite taken with the sight of them. So I married him, and eventually I found out not only was he a gambler, he was gambling the money of my farm, but he was also unfaithful. He was having an affair with one of my servants who had deserted me and was pregnant with my child. So you can see how this whole situation was unpleasant for my person. But oh well, he died. Thanks to Mr. Baldwood, actually. Yes, another perk of remaining good friends with your ex-unwanted suitors. You know, they can come to your rescue or your help if you need any in the future. Long story short, Troy was trying to blackmail me and steal the money from my farm. So Baldwood shot him, which is why Baldwood is in prison right now, and which is why I am wealthy, unbothered, and happily married to Gabriel. But my sweet child, if you ever marry, God forbid that you ever should. Choose wisely, because men, oh men, need I say anything else? But thank you for visiting me. It was quite pleasant indeed. I'll take that cup back from you if you will. Thank you. Please do not hesitate to come and ask for my tips when it comes to marrying anyone, rejecting anyone, dating even. I am quite the professional. And if you want to have breakfast with us, we have some fresh bread right here, some fresh eggs, an English breakfast maybe. Would you like that? With some porridge? You know, English things. I don't know. Thank you for visiting me. Oh, you are on your way. Okay. Well, no matter. The pleasure was mine. Bye-bye.